Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the Brian Escow Show. As you may know, I am a former lifelong Democrat who grew up in a quite progressive home, who, upon studying critical race theory in my final year of law school, which was 2021 into 2022, I started, and that was right after my vote for Biden. Remember, a lifelong Democrat. So Obama, Hillary, Joe. And then after the vote for Biden, upon studying critical race theory in 21 into 22, I launched a podcast called Searching for Political Identity while I was in that final year of law school, wrestling with what I was learning. And I kept hosting that podcast for the next 4 years, interviewed a lot of different people from different walks of life. On balance, probably more Republicans and libertarians than Democrats, but overall, a fair mix. And read a couple books and ended up voting for Trump in 2024. Long story short, after following Kennedy to Trump, I was attracted to Vivek during the campaign for his merit-based anti-CRT messaging. He was really hitting the nail on the head for me, as was DeSantis. I really like DeSantis, but nobody could step out of Trump's shadow, right? So it was Trump or Harris. And because of what I had learned in law school and where I was coming from that perspective and the way Harris became the nominee and her performance as the nominee, it was Trump or Harris. And I went Trump. And shortly after I did that, I decided to rebrand the podcast to the Brian Escow Show because why not? Trying to grow. I go back and forth between hating having my name in the podcast and thinking, you know what, it's fine. And where I'm at right now, I'll tell you after I take a sip of tea, it's hard to talk a lot. You try it. Where I'm at now with the name is like, look, soon everyone will have a podcast. Like you'll have a serial number on your arm. You'll have when you get pulled over, license, registration, what's your podcast? So just might as well call it the Brian S. This is my podcast. I have hazel eyes. I'm 6'2". I have a podcast, Monday through Friday. No. So it's my podcast. And what I'm here to do is continue exploring themes of identity, philosophy, politics, and see where it all shakes out and try to understand the world we're living in. It's a complicated world. It's definitely a complicated world. The technology, modernity, it's a lot of work to be an informed citizen, a healthy person. In some ways, in some ways it is. In some ways, maybe it's very easy. You just have to take accountability. So I'm not here to preach or be anyone's life coach. I've got my own life to straighten out. I'm just here to express myself and figure things out for myself at my own pace. Hopefully entertain some people along the way and help people do the same. That's all I'm here to do. So before I get into the main topic of this podcast, which is my experience at Comic-Con yesterday, which I can't wait to tell you about, I do want to say that I have a few other random agenda items to quickly go through. I don't know if it's a good idea that I've decided to do them because I'm like, ugh, one, they kind of kill the vibe, and two, they're kind of random, but we're just gonna do it. So sip of tea real quick. Okay, here's the plan for today. I'm going to give you two random, sad, weird stories. They're both sad. One of them is weird. Stories involving musicians. And then I'm going to give you a quick wrap up on my final thoughts about how I did in terms of my introduction to Nietzsche in last week's episode. A final thought on Jordan Peterson's lecture series that I'm listening to on Nietzsche. A quick thought on the post I just made about Rubio and why I think he's my preferred candidate going into 28, and then we'll get into Comic-Con. So, first, these weird, sad stories involving musicians. I'll start with the one that is more recent to me, the one that I have not been digesting for a month, which I'm much more interested in. This first one is just new and random and is a bit of a headline news story. So, have you heard of this artist, David? There's no I, and the A is a number 4. D4vd. David. I never heard of him. So I see this headline that this indie artist, had a Tesla, and there was a decomposing corpse of a young girl. And it was some sort of death occurred, and it's very odd. It seems like a homicide, but it's alleged. He's allegedly murdered a young girl in his car. Rather, the headline was there was a young girl found decomposing in his Tesla. Okay, so you do the math. But so I read the story a little bit, and it's like, okay, they're trying to see what's going on. It's a horrific situation. It's odd. She was in there for a while, so apparently it's harder to diagnose exactly what happened. Hopefully, the wrongdoer won't get off because of that, but it's kind of complicated forensically. And so I guess you won't believe this. This is why I'm mentioning it. So why is this worthy of a mention? This guy had like one hit song apparently. The title of it is called Romantic Homicide. I'm like, oh my God. I listened to it. It's a great track. It's quite good. And one of the lyrics is, it's dark. And one of the lyrics is something like, in the back of my mind, you died and I didn't care, something like that. Well, and then, a girl ends up dead in the back of his car. And it's like, apparently he didn't care because it didn't go reported for so long. So, holy, and it's like the fact that it's like a decent song. It's like, oh, I can't add this to my library. I want to, but it's just too weird. So David with a 4 and no I. Holy shit, right? And he's probably seems my age, 36, black guy. Me too. I'm also black. No, I don't. Just seeing a picture and hearing this song, I go, oh God. And so apparently the story is they were having a romantic relationship. She was 14, dead, didn't make it to 15. Apparently they'd been having and so however old he is, but he's too old, and they were having some sort of relationship allegedly, and she would threaten to out him and ruin his career, and so he killed her is the allegation. So romantic homicide. In the back of my mind, I killed you, and I didn't care. Holy crap. Just terrible, horrific, obviously. Very dark, very dark. So that just caught my attention. And now for the other sad story involving a musician. Have you heard of Oliver Tree? I made a couple videos before I decided to restart the podcast officially. I was doing some, in the car videos. And I did some commentary on Oliver Tree, and I just wanted to make it official on the podcast, get him a mention here. And the reason, so I've been like in a state of mourning for a month. He died in a helicopter accident on June 14th. I did not know his music. I did not know who he was before I heard that he died. And I had been, in the month since it happened, I have seen every video that there is to see on him, every interview, every song, and I'm just enamored with him as an artist, a musician, a person, a beautiful soul, a cool guy, a funny guy, just an awesome guy. And I've totally fallen in love. And so I've been really bummed about it. And I kind of, after a month, finally started to put it away and kind of just move on, At a time when I'm getting back into making music myself, playing guitar, he just really hit a nerve for me as a creator. He really hit home as someone who followed his dreams and followed his instincts and just did it. I really admire that, and so it was a rough month for me. But I'd been pretty much putting it aside finally. And then I see today was the memorial, or at least that's when it was released on YouTube. And so I tuned in for a bit. I'm going to watch the whole thing. But I saw his family. I saw the first couple minutes and his parents speak. And please watch that. It starts at about the 50 mark, 50. There was a long wait period. And then, watch the first 10 minutes at least. That's what I did so far. And you get a pretty good idea of this guy. But you won't really know until you watch all his interviews, all the clips. So you couldn't, if you don't, I guess if it's, you know. If you don't really know him, you won't get it. But it's a tragedy. What else to say about Oliver Tree? He was a creator. He had a great voice, hip hop, rap inspired, rock, pop, pop. So he was a rock star, pop star, insecure guy about his looks, although he was handsome. Um, but he used his insecurity to create and to uplift. And so he's a very positive guy, a very positive guy. And he did a lot in his short time. He was 32 and he made several albums. He was signed to Atlantic Records. I mean, he did it. He lived the life. He did the mansion thing, and then he said, you know what, this doesn't make sense. And then he did the nomad thing, and he traveled all around the world prior to releasing his latest album, and went through this transformation. And he was just growing, and he did so much in a short period of time. And I guess it's just another case of, God, he could have done so much more. He could have done so much more. Just from a humanitarian perspective, for sure, but from an artistic perspective, there was just so much, and he was so versatile and so passionate and so talented that this guy could have just been a 40 album guy, for the rest of his life. He could have been, that's all, and he would have been an architect, and he was just not a polymath perhaps, but interested, talented, hardworking guy. I mean, good combo. So I got really into him, and it's been a pleasure seeing all his videos and his interviews. He was so funny on podcasts. He would always be like, dude, I'll walk. Like, I'll leave. I'll get up right now. Just this false seriousness. Total trip. He would face paint, dress up in costumes. There was an insecurity there, but tremendous humor, and always positive, always positive. So a real role model, a real role model. Okay. That's Oliver Tree. The ceremony, I think, was today. So my final thoughts on Nietzsche was, I just wanted to say, look, I didn't endeavor in the 10 minutes that I mentioned Nietzsche last week to explain all of Nietzschean thought. I don't know all of Nietzschean thought. I just meant to give you a snapshot of what I was learning in the Jordan Peterson lectures. That's all. So someone commented and said, "Oh, I gave this episode a try, but sorry, you didn't explain Nietzsche well at all or completely or this and that." I'm like, that wasn't the goal here. I'm just trying to give you an idea of what I'm getting exposed to at the time too. And I think I did an okay job of giving you a quick synopsis of the ideas. And there's more, so again, as I mentioned, there's 2 8-part lectures on Nietzsche that Peterson does in the Peterson Academy. I've got like 2 more to go, I think. So I'm almost there. I have a pretty good idea of what's been discussed. And there is more that I could update you in the 3 episodes that I've listened since I did the last episode, but I'm not going to bother. Look, I'm not here to do that. I'm not here to actually teach philosophy. I'm here to learn and share with you kind of as I go what I'm being exposed to. So Nietzsche is very interesting, super interesting. Probing the ideas of identity and morality. That's what I'm doing on this show. That's what he did. Nietzsche was he questioned the very foundations of philosophy itself. And yeah, he did call into question this idea of objective truth. And does everyone not have their own story that they're going by? And what do you do? Does that mean everyone's right? Does that mean no one's right? Does that mean that one person's right? Everything, God is dead. Morality is dead, as I said last week. So there's a lot there. I certainly don't understand all of it, but it's been a pleasure getting a basic introduction into Nietzschean philosophy. Now I know how to pronounce it. Nietzsche. Got it. Okay, that's my thought on whether or not I'm going full philosopher. Not yet. Now my comment on Rubio before I get into Comic-Con. Just to say, I think Marco Rubio is great. There's nothing that I don't like about him. So yeah, he's my number 1, I suppose. And he's palatable. Not that I need the person to be palatable from the experience of a perspective of a former leftist like I am, because am I still a leftist? Well, no. But look, when you vote left your whole life except for Trump, and Trump is kind of this anomaly, you do kind of want to feel comfortable, like there's some continuity with your next vote. So Rubio would feel fine, right? He's a moderate Republican, as I said in my post today, and he gets the positives. To me, he gets MAGA. He totally gets it, and he would protect it from the worst impulses and the worst people. That there's extremes and horrible people in every movement, but so for me, Rubio totally cleanses MAGA as I have cleansed it in my mind. I say, you know what? It's not this image of what the mainstream media has portrayed it to be. MAGA is something very different than MSN Now, has been telling you it is for many years. I'm with that. Vance, I have no problem with. I love Vance. I'm a huge fan. In many ways, I think he's a more talented speaker and writer. It's funny. Vance could be on the Supreme Court easily. Vance is so smooth. He's very gifted. Rubio is very gifted too. And Rubio, with the ideas and the intelligence, is right there with him. So Rubio goes pound for pound and may even hit harder pound for pound as a speaker and writer. Although I would give the edge in terms of raw talent to Vance. So talent is one thing, and I love talent. It's really important, and competence. But I think Rubio probably has the slight edge, and it's not just the Israel thing. Yeah, Matt, I'm Jewish, and it doesn't hurt that Rubio is stronger on Israel. But you bet your ass I'd be happy to vote for J.D. Vance. I think we'd be lucky, and I say this all the time. We'd be so lucky to have someone so talented with his experience as J.D. Vance. I think he's great. So the Republicans really have an embarrassment of riches. Same thing with DeSantis. Huge DeSantis fan. So we can't go wrong here on the Republican side. And who on the Democrats? I'm sorry. We'll see. Hopefully, a great contender emerges. We need to have a healthy process on the left. And God willing, someone will emerge and there'll be a healthy debate and it'll be good for the country. That's how it should be. So Rubio checks all the boxes. I think Vance checks all the boxes. DeSantis checks all the boxes for me. It's just pick your favorite drink there. I like Rubio. I think Rubio, gun to my head, with the experience. Yeah. Well, all right. Let's talk about Comic-Con. So this was a full circle moment for me, totally, because I've been in San Diego almost 15 years now. And when I moved here by myself, knowing hardly anyone, 2 people I knew, one of the first things I did, in the first 6 months of being here, I remember one Friday night, sitting at home, watching a documentary. I happened to come across a PBS documentary on the comic book era. The creators of the classic DC Marvel comics. And so I was like, okay, hell yeah. I mean, I love superhero movies. I'm a nerd, totally, big time. So yeah, I say, yeah, I'm gonna watch this, and it's fantastic. It's awesome. The history of, and I don't really remember it, but it's how they were mostly Jews and immigrants, and the stories they created and all of that, and how it has transformed. And the documentary ended with basically a shot of like crowded streets with people walking around in costumes, almost like it was Comic-Con, but I didn't really know what Comic-Con was. So the idea being that look what the comic industry spawned with the music, the movie industry, and the toys and the commerce, the Avengers and all of this. It's just incredible. So I said, yeah, that was a great documentary. Yeah, wow. You forget that they come from comics, and the comics come from a historical context. So it's fantastic. So the documentary ends. It's like 2-3 hours long. It's like 8 p.m. Friday night. And it dawns on me that it's Comic-Con right now. And I didn't see, I was a nerd and I love superhero movies, and I'm the guy who would go to Harry Potter on his 21st birthday by himself instead of going out. That's me. So I'm a huge nerd, but at the same time, I never really went all the way. So I didn't know anything about Comic Con. I wasn't a crowd person, so you were never going to find me at Comic Con. But, and this is 15 years ago, I said, oh my God, I have nothing to do. I'm here all alone in San Diego, and it's Comic Con, and I just watched this. Maybe I should go downtown and check what it's about. So I get in my car, I drive downtown. I remember paying $40 for parking, and it was crowded down Fifth Ave, Gaslamp, and just it was like Halloween on steroids, and people dressed up to the nine. And it was quite a trip, just walking those streets by myself, and came home shortly after, and it was quite an experience. And so fast forward to the present day, and Alexa and I, without telling the whole story, and I wish I could, but we acquired passes to Comic Con for yesterday in a relatively late hour. Okay, so we end up at Comic Con yesterday, and I didn't know what to expect, right? Because we're going in. We go inside, and we get breakfast beforehand. So that's Fifth Ave, but it was the morning, so it was nothing like 15 years before when I'd walked the streets at night. It's the morning, but it's busy. It's booming. All the buildings are painted and dressed up with posters and artwork, and it's kind of cool. But there's a lot of people, and I'm not really a crowd guy, but whatever. We're in line for this breakfast spot, and first thing I see is a guy in an eye patch, and you see all the T-shirts, and you're like, all right, you start to get into it. All the T-shirts, all the costumes, and then, long story short, getting in and seeing all the booths, and the scale of this convention, and the passion. I mean, it's like, I was with my wife, and she's a few years younger than me, and she doesn't really have many or any of the cultural references that I have. And it's kind of cool because I'm rewatching all the classic things that I like: X-Men, Mortal Kombat, Game of Thrones. Right now, we're watching. Like, I'm getting to rewatch everything and see it through her eyes. And she's cool. She's the right amount of nerd. She's into it all, and it's amazing. So I'm with Alexa, and it's like this massive, endless convention center, right, with all these booths, and it's like your childhood is just spread out, and it's every game, the Tamagotchi, just everything. And so, for someone who doesn't really know the comic book world, it's not like, of course, much of it went over my head, but you could just walk up and down and appreciate what you don't understand and say, yeah, this is a rich world. And it started with the comics, and it's way beyond comics into just pop culture and art and anime and toys and Star Wars and Disney. I mean, everything. I mean, the exhibits, the people. Guys, I wouldn't call it a carnival, but it was just an amazing festive convention where everyone is passionate about something, and it was so cohesive. It ended up just a positive environment for artists. And yes, it's so commercial, but so what? That's great. Let the artists make the money. Yeah, there's big corporations here. Okay, but there's small guys here too. And it's all good, and it's all about transformation and art and growth and taking yourself out of the ordinary, right? So it's just a wonderful place to be, totally over the top, but at the same time, totally just right. So I loved it. I plan on going back. I said to Alexa, what are we going to become, Comic Con people now? Maybe. We didn't make it into Hall H for the Marvel big thing last night where they revealed Ryan Gosling as Ghost Rider and all of that jazz. But so cool, It's just a great celebration of the arts. And I mean, truly, truly. So, I mean, everything you could imagine is represented there, guys. And someone commented yesterday, Brian, the Hebrew, Nietzsche, Carl Jung, because these are things I talk about on the podcast and I'm studying at the moment. influence on superheroes is very interesting, and that's so interesting too. And I've touched upon it a little bit, right? Mentioning transformation. Sip of tea. Yes, the superhero motif in general is very interesting. And it fits in with what I'm doing, the journey I'm on to understand myself, to grow. This is what I want to do. I want to turn into the best version of myself. Super Brian, who is the best version of Brian. And what does that look like? Who does that person vote for? Is it always Republicans? Is it always Democrat? Is it maybe am I mistaken? Do I need to do a massive course correction? I leave open the door for that. Maybe it's possible. I don't think that's what's going to happen. But you don't want to. You can't say that it's impossible that it would happen. Or is it someone who goes vote depending on the candidate? I mean, is this whole concept of independent as a political identity? I don't really buy it. You could say yes. Well, an independent is independent of the moneyed interest, so you could have a principled identity based on that. Okay, fine, but it's a little complicated to say I'm a political independent. It's like, why can't we just say one of the parties is against the moneyed interest, and that's the parties I align with? It's complicated, guys. So yes, to sum this hodgepodge episode up, and to repeat myself, this is about self-discovery and growth and honesty and transformation and aspiring to be the best. And that's what Clark Kent, in a way, is. So I love taking these Jordan Peterson classes and going deep and learning about Marxism. And it's just, there's so many interesting things. One of the classes, I think I mentioned it. Maybe I didn't. Maybe this is a class that I took while I was still on break with the podcast. It was called The Dark Side of Marxism. It's also on the Jordan Peterson Academy, taught by a guy named, I think his name is Paul Kagor. You'll find it, The Dark Side of Communism. And it really highlighted, at least for a time, the connection that Marx had to not Satanism strictly and explicitly, but satanic characters and satanic motifs and satanic poetry. And so it didn't unfairly paint Marx as a Satanist, but it highlighted this idea that Marx was fixated on spiritual matters, and there is a spiritual element to communism and politics. And so going deep is perhaps appropriate. I like to go deep, is what I'm trying to say, and see what the spiritual dimension is, if any, of a political topic and a philosophical dimension of the topic. And so I think it's cool. I mean, I'm hoping that I'm going to end up in the right place here. I don't think I'm off the deep end, just because I've become a Trump supporter. Some people, I do get a lot of that still. How could you be a Trump supporter? You're crazy, or you're a grifter. It's like, look, man, I went through an experience. I came out saying, I think Trump is the guy, and he's controversial, and he has done controversial things. The war, I really hope it pans out well. I'm having faith. I'm having a little faith. He's making hard choices, and it might not work out well, and that would be horrible if it doesn't. But I'm not ready to judge it. The ICE raids, in general, I think enforcing the law is fine. Actually, it's more than fine. It's preferable. I do have people in my life that tell me that we look Mexican, so we're not even Mexican, by the way, but we look Mexican, so we're afraid to walk around the streets in LA. And you support that guy? So that makes me uncomfortable. So it's not a perfect, I'm not one of these people who is like, oh man, it's all perfect. But in principle, was I going to vote for Harris? Come on. But there are a lot of things. Trump is the tariffs. I mean, is it working? I don't know. I'm not ready to judge, guys. I want to give it until the end of the second term. I want to give it to the end of the second term. Is that fair? Or am I being evasive now? And now am I just, or have I just turned into a purely hey, I found my lane. I'm pro Trump. Fuck it. I'm going forward no matter what. I think it's okay to give him some more time. So I will continue to find topics that catch my interest, talk about them, and talk about political current events as well. And over time, we'll see how my feelings on Trump develop. And we'll see what happens with the next election. It should be interesting. Look, the presidential election is always interesting. It's always fascinating. It always reveals something about ourselves, who we vote for, about the country. Um, and I love this country. And I love people. I want to see America and I want to see Americans thrive. What's the right party? What's the right vision? Who's the right candidate? That is primarily the topic I'll be exploring. At the same time, perhaps I'll be hosting a comedian here and there, a musician, in addition to political candidates and all that stuff like I used to do. And, you know, when you put it all together, the Brian Escow Show is that search for what's right, you know? And I'm not perfect. I know that. And I don't have any delusions of grandeur. I'm just a guy searching for truth. As corny as it sounds, trying to make a positive impact. So thank you so much for your time, and I will see you next week. Have a good one.